Hi guys! Welcome back to Storytime with Tilly. I have 2 stories for you today. Winnie the Pooh, of course. We're going to read Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. You excited? Okay, let's get started. The Sleepover. Comfortable, Piglet? Pooh asked. He was tucking his friend into a dresser drawer that had been made into a bed, just the right size for Piglet. Oh, yes, Pooh. Thank you ever so much, Piglet replied. The 2 friends were having a best friend sleepover, which as far as they could tell, had to involve sleeping over something. The 2 friends were having a best friend sleepover, which as far as they could tell, had to involve sleeping over something. I suppose you could say that I'm sleeping over other dresser drawer, said Piglet. Pooh nodded. He looked around his house. Now, I wonder what I should sleep over. Piglet looked around too, but there seemed to be just one place that was well suited for Pooh, his own bed. So, in the end, that's what Pooh decided to sleep over. Well, good night, Piglet, said Pooh. He blew out the candle and climbed into bed. Good night, Pooh Bear, Piglet replied. Piglet lay in the darkness of Pooh's room, comfortable in his drawer. What a wonderful best friend sleepover it had been so far, he thought. First, Piglet and Pooh had enjoyed a before-bedtime snack. Next, they had put on their pajamas. Then, they had made a bedtime story together. Of course, it was always fun spending time with Pooh. Although there was something about being at Pooh's house at bedtime that was so different from being at Piglet's own house at bedtime. As he lay there in the dresser drawer with his eyes wide open, it occurred to Piglet that the darkness of Pooh's house was much darker than it was at his own house. So Piglet rolled over and pulled up the covers. Then he closed his eyes tight and tried to fall asleep, but nothing happened. Pooh! Piglet whispered. Pooh Bear! He called out, a little louder this time. He didn't want to wake up Pooh. Then Piglet wondered if perhaps Pooh was awake, but had just not heard him. Still, there was no answer. Piglet tried his best again to fall asleep. Then he heard a soft, low rumbling. It was curiously similar to the sound of a sleeping bear snoring. As Piglet listened, the sound grew louder and louder, and then softer and softer, and then louder and louder, over and over again. Was it the sound of an approaching huffalump? Piglet wondered. The sound continued. Pooh! Oh, dear! Piglet shouted, jumping out of the drawer and running to Pooh's bedside. He shook Pooh as he shouted, Wake up! Wake up! Oh, please, Pooh! Pooh said drowsily, sitting up. He climbed out of bed and walked over to light a candle. When it was lit, he found Piglet hiding under the covers in Pooh's bed. Why, Piglet? Said Pooh. What's the matter? Piglet was trembling so much it was hard to get words out. It's that horrible noise, Pooh, he stammered. Piglet listened for the noise so he could point it out, then he realized he couldn't hear it. That's funny, said Piglet as he peeked out from under the covers. The noise stopped as soon as you woke up, Pooh. Said Pooh. He shrugged. Then he yawned. I guess that means we can go back to sleep. Piglet wasn't so sure. He didn't want to hurt Pooh's feelings, but he didn't think he could fall asleep in Pooh's room. Pooh Bear, said Piglet timidly, I don't mean to be a bad best friend, but do you think we might, have the rest of our best friends sleep over some other night? I'm just not used to sleeping anywhere but my own house. Pooh sat down on the bed and put his arm around Piglet. I understand, Piglet, he said. We can have the rest of our best friends sleep over whenever you like. Pooh helped Piglet gather his own things, including his very own pillow. Then, hand in hand, Pooh and Piglet began to walk through the 100-acre wood. It was a short stroll through the forest to Piglet's house. The stars were still twinkling in the night sky, when the two best friends arrived. "Here you are, Piglet," Pooh said as they entered. Home sweet home. Piglet was very glad to be at his own house. "Oh, thank you, Pooh," he said. "Thank you so much for understanding and for walking me back. I suppose you'll need to get home to bed now?" Pooh considered the question. "That does sound like a thing to do," he said. "But first, I might sit down for a little rest." Pooh noticed a comfortable-looking chair. Just for a few minutes, of course. While Piglet put away his things, Pooh sat down in the chair. It was even more comfortable than it looked. Pooh put his feet up. Then he decided to rest his eyes, just for a moment. By the time Piglet came back, Pooh was fast asleep. He was even making a soft, low rumbling sound. But in the comfort of his own house, it did not strike Piglet as anything other than the sound of one sleeping bear snoring. Piglet covered his best friend with a small blanket and slipped a pillow under his head. "Sweet dreams, Pooh Bear," he whispered. Then Piglet climbed into his own bed and drifted off to sleep. It seemed that he and Pooh were having their best friend sleepover after all. Have you guys ever had a sleepover at your friend's house? Or maybe a cousin's house? How was it? Did you have fun? Watching a movie? Eating popcorn or chocolate chip cookies? Well, sleepovers can be fun, but they can be a little scary sometimes because you don't sleep in your own bed at night. You can always bring a stuffy from home or a blanket. That won't make it so scary to be somewhere else for the night. And if you ever want to go back home at night, it is no problem. Just tell the adult. Alright guys, our next story is titled Eeyore's Good Day. Eeyore's Good Day. The sun was only just reaching its highest point in the sky over the 100-acre wood. But already it had been a friend-filled day for Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. Early that morning, they had agreed it was a good day to visit all their friends. First, they had dropped in on Kanga and Roo, who were just finishing their breakfast. "What a pleasant surprise," Kanga had said. She had welcomed them inside and set 2 more plates at the table. Pooh had already had a full breakfast, but the walk to Kanga and Roo's house had made Pooh and Piglet hungry. Next, Pooh and Piglet had stopped at Rabbit's house, just in time for a mid-morning snack. Rabbit was happy to see his friends while he took a break from working on his garden. And later that morning, they had dropped in to say hello at Owl's. He was just beginning to fix his lunch and invited Pooh and Piglet to join him. "I'm not sure we can stay for lunch," Piglet said. "We have a few more friends to visit." Pooh scratched his chin and rubbed his tummy, deep in thought. "Though I suppose that means we better keep up our strength," he said at last, plopping down into one of Owl's chairs. Now as Pooh and Piglet made their way toward Eeyore's house, Pooh felt pleasantly full, while Piglet felt overstuffed. He hoped that Eeyore had no food to offer. "Good afternoon, Eeyore," Piglet called out as he and Pooh spotted their friend sitting in the sun. "Oh, hello," Eeyore replied gloomily. "What brings you out to my gloomy part of the wood?" Pooh looked up at the sky and the bright sun. "It doesn't seem very gloomy to me," he said. Eeyore turned his eyes skyward. He said flatly. "I suppose you're right." "Is anything the matter, Eeyore?" Piglet asked. Eeyore thought it over. "No," he said at last. "I suppose nothing is the matter today." Pooh and Piglet looked at each other, puzzled. Neither was quite sure what to say. Nothing the matter? Usually Eeyore had at least one trouble to report. That his tail had fallen off, or his house had fallen down, or been moved when he wasn't looking. Eeyore lay down and sighed a heavy sigh. "I guess this is what some folks would call a good day. I call it downright uncomfortable." Pooh scratched his head. "Uncomfortable?" he said. Eeyore nodded. "I'm not complaining," he said. "But nothing the matter feels like an awful lot."
like something the matter to me. Suddenly, Piglet had an idea. "Pardon me, Eeyore," he said. "I need to talk to Pooh for a second." Piglet pulled Pooh aside and whispered in his ear so that Eeyore could not hear. "Pooh Bear, I was wondering," Piglet began. "Do you think Eeyore would feel better if something were the matter?" "I think that very well may be," Pooh whispered back. "I was thinking if you and I were to make something the matter just temporarily, of course. Perhaps Eeyore would feel more like himself," Piglet suggested. Pooh and Piglet decided they would ask Eeyore to come with them to visit Christopher Robin. They figured that would take his mind off his problems, or rather, his lack of problems. But on the way back to Eeyore, Piglet stopped to examine a tiny ladybug on a flower. Pooh, who was walking right behind him, didn't see Piglet stop. Pooh stumbled over poor Piglet and flew through the air toward Eeyore. At the very last moment, Eeyore stepped out of the way, and Pooh tumbled full speed into Eeyore's house. Eeyore's house came crashing down to the ground. "Don't worry, Eeyore," Piglet reassured him. "We'll rebuild it for you, won't we, Pooh?" "Yes, yes," Pooh replied. And he and Piglet went right to work putting the house back together, as Eeyore looked on. As Eeyore watched his friends rebuild his house, the smallest smile worked its way across his face. Was it because now there was something the matter, and that felt more natural to the gray donkey? Or was it watching two good friends working hard to cheer up another that made Eeyore's spirits lift? Whatever the reason, all three friends agreed it had turned out to be a very good day indeed.
What do you guys think? Did Pooh and Piglet have a good day after all? And did they cheer up Eeyore? It was a good day after all, right? They got to cheer up Eeyore in the end and visit all their friends. I hope you guys have a great day. Maybe go see a friend or two. And don't forget to visit your local library and get more fun books to read. Next time, guys, we will start with Chapter 5, our next Winnie the Pooh book story. I hope you guys enjoy your day. Go out and play and have a good time. And as always, I will leave you guys with, you are important. You are super smart and you are loved. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!